Okay, thank you guys for coming out today instead of being at a patio or something. But I think it's going to be a great talk. I'm really excited. It's going to be a bit of a breath of fresh air for all the digital. It'll be maybe a little bit of a trip, I think, which is going to be exciting. Before we get going, I want to take a moment to introduce the sponsors. Say thanks to VenMobi for sharing this beautiful space with us and all the chairs and getting everything organized. It makes our lives so much easier. They also sponsor the beers, so huge thanks for them. They're looking for a web developer specifically for marketing, as well as a marketing operations person and an events coordinator person for their marketing team. So if any of you guys are interested or know anybody that's interested in that, get in contact with Bijan, who is around here or will be at the end of the event. Also, thanks to Top Hat. They are one of the success stories in the city, and they want to give back to the community by way of feeding you tonight. They sponsor the pizza, so thanks to them as well. And I'll just mention briefly Growth Collective. Growth Collective is my company, the one that I used to organize this event, so the umbrella. What we do is we help seed-funded startups be able to stand up the marketing department to be able to get the traction they need to raise the next level of funding. I'm not going to make much of a plug besides that. Just say if you're interested or anybody that's interested in that, just check out the website and see what we do. A quick details on the Wi-Fi in case any of you have missed it. And our Twitter is Growth Hacking TO and Growth Hacking for broader conversation. Next is Saul. So thank you very much, Saul. I'll give it to you, and I'll come back in at the end. And let me pass.
Well, thank you for that incredible introduction. How's everyone doing? Cool. You guys are in for something special tonight because you guys are all about growth hacking and like viral loops and stuff like that. You can flip to the next slide. I don't do any of that stuff. I believe in something else, and I'm going to tell you guys kind of what I believe in tonight. So as the slide says, there's a little bit of saltiness in this conversation, and that's okay because we're all grown-ups. I like to start my talk by setting expectations. So I don't know how we're going to do this sliding thing, but I gave a talk, and this is an email I got after it. I just wanted to say thanks for putting on that lecture yesterday. I honestly thought it was one of the best lectures I've ever listened to, blah, blah, blah. You guys kind of get the point. For every 100 emails I get like that, once in a while I do get one like this next one that said, as mentioned, if this is the way to start a business, I can't figure it. I would throw a guy like you, a guy who looked like you, out of my office just based on how you look and dress and your nonsense of humor you expressed in Ward today. Noticed a lot of people in the audience dressed like you. What do you and they have against a shave and appearing well-groomed in public? Needless to say, this guy actually asked me to refund $6 for his parking because he just didn't get my presentation. Yeah, see, it's right there. You can send me a check for $6.50 to pay for my parking. So could get the first one, or this might be the type of talk that you're going to all ask for your parking to be refunded. Yeah. That's the last slide. You got to stay till the end. Next slide. So, like I said, this is going to be a bit of a different talk. Raise your hand if anyone here has had sex recently. Okay, good. Next slide. Next slide. You got to put the hand down, Christian. You got to stay on this. I have sex occasionally. Next slide. And when I do, I get text messages like this. The woman I have sex with the most sent this to me. She says, I can't decide what part of my body loves you more, my labia majora or my labia minora, but they both do. Who's received a text message like that? Okay, just setting expectations. This is still expectation setting. You guys are going to be amazed because in about 10 minutes, you're going to be like, holy shit, this is about growth hacking. Next slide. She also knows me. She wants me to know where she is at all times, so she sends me text messages like this. Let's keep this moving. This is even embarrassing for me. She sends me naked pictures of people that aren't her. Let's keep going. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, it's a good joke, but you guys are above that. Well, you're going too far. Too far. Okay. Yes. She said this to me the other day, and this really stuck with me. She said, "The thing I like most about making love to you is that I can actually see and feel your heart break a little as we do it, because while I know you love me, I also know I'm not the one you're in love with." That's like a pretty deep thing for someone to tell you, isn't it? Let's let that sink in for a second. Okay, this is about growth hacking. Next slide. If you're asking what kind of person would say such a thing, next slide. Oh, I wish I had a clicker. It's my psychiatrist, because of course, when you sleep with your psychiatrist, who's going to know you better than that person? She's seen the inside of me, literally and figuratively. That usually gets a better response, but you guys are a tough room. Next slide. But she isn't wrong. Okay, so when she did say, I can actually see and feel your heart breaking because I know you love me, but I'm not the person you're in love with. Like, there's something to that. Next slide. Because there is someone else. And this is her. Okay? One of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. We sit on tables like in 16 Candles, and we do all sorts of things like that. Next slide. And I realized that I was really crazy about this girl when she told me a Batman joke. Does anyone want to hear the joke? Yes. Okay. So, 7-year-old kid is walking along a beach, and he finds a genie lamp, and he rubs it. The genie pops out, and the genie says, "I will grant you one wish." And the kid says, "I want to be Batman." So the genie killed his parents. It's a great joke, right? This is still about growth hacking. You guys got to stick with it for a minute. She's crazy smart. We have conversations about is inspiration greater than influence, and we talk about the concept of weekend friends. I do a lot of traveling for work, and I'm never away on a weekend because I know my friends will hang out with me from Monday to Friday. I never want to find out if they'll hang out with me on Saturday or Sunday, so I never put them in that situation. When I see a picture of her, and that's actually her, or when we Skype, weird things happen to my abdominal muscles because I'm so in love with this girl that I have like a visceral reaction. And when I dream about her, I'm not dreaming about having sex or anything like that. I'm dreaming about holding hands, and I'm dreaming that we're a black stock photography couple sitting in a field. Because, and let's keep going, she lives in another city. And while like I see her a couple times a year or a quarter or however much, most of our relationship is entirely online, and it's like through text messages and Skype and things like that. So this makes things incredibly harder because when you're in love with somebody, you want to like hold them, you want to touch them, you want to be black and sit in a field and all those things. It's also weird because when you're not in front of the person, when you're not like in real life with the person, things can you can lose things in translation. So I am not yet, Christian. You're getting too excited. Yes. I asked her, I played her the most romantic song ever written, which is, of course, Teddy Pendergrass, Turn Out the Lights, and she didn't agree, and that was almost a deal breaker. Because she wasn't there, I couldn't gauge her reaction. And that's when I realized that as long as our relationship was entirely online, I'll always feel like there's a part of me that wants more. Okay? Next slide. Think about that. Okay? As long as everything you do with your customers, everything that you do as a company is always online, they're going to miss out part of it. They're going to feel like I do with my cartoon girlfriend and not understanding Teddy Pendergrass and things like that. So, when everything is online, you run the risk of people getting busy with work and life and just forgetting about you or not understanding intent, like now and for me, because right now, she's not talking to me. And I have no idea why. Because she's far away. I can't just like tap her on the shoulder and say, what's the deal? I can't do these things because everything we're doing is online. So I'm sad. But you guys, like any number of the women here, could take all that sadness away. But we can talk about that in the last slide. My reason for being a little heartbroken right now is, it's great for you guys. You guys actually benefit from my sadness, because what I just described to you is the formula for creating great guerrilla marketing. And guerrilla marketing is just anything that gets people to start conversations. You create a spectacle that people get excited about, that they want to share. Okay, guerrilla, it can be big expense, small cost, all sorts of things. But it's like any spectacle that creates a conversation. And conversations are the growth hack. Okay, and I know you guys do all sorts of digital stuff, and you're tricking people with email newsletters that have the subject line with "re" already in it, so people go, "Oh, I don't remember getting this." This isn't what this talk is about. Okay? So did you guys catch the formula? Well, that didn't render properly. Anyways, next slide. If not, I'm going to start again. My name is Saul Colt. I am a marketing daredevil. As you guys see, that's how daredevils dress. Next slide. A little bit about me. I collect Nike sneakers. I, for a decade, supported myself by writing comic books. That's not only the funniest page I ever wrote, it's brilliant. I once did no, Christian, come on, man. Right here, I once did a talk in front of 2,000 people at a big fancy conference, and I forgot my laptop at home. So I went to Staples and I drew out all of my slides on big pieces of Bristol board. And if you guys have ever driven in a ZipCar, I was the guy that launched ZipCar in Canada, so you're welcome. Next slide. What I do has nothing to do with SEO or PPC. That's pay-per-click for those of you not in the know. What I do is I do stuff that touches people. Okay? This is psychic surgery. If you guys don't know about it, you should. It's hilarious. Good touch or bad touch, and I've been accused of both. I create experiences that people remember. Okay? Growth hacking, by definition, is just escalate your audience, escalate your traction, escalate whatever you're trying to do. There is 1,000 ways to do it, and you should incorporate real world things, because real world is how you create loyalty. Real world is how people connect to your brand. Real world is like really what people are craving. Back. Right here, handful of years ago, I was asked to create a trade show booth for FreshBooks, a company I'm very fond of, and it gave me like 6 days to come up with an idea for our booth. It was a last-minute decision, so I thought about, what do people do at trade shows? They look at their feet, because they don't want to talk to people unless they want to actually be spoken to when they're walking up and down the aisles. So I put our booth on the floor, and I made a giant twister board, and I forced people to lie under me while we played Twister, because my thought process was, if I'm on top of you, you're going to remember what the brand is. And it worked. Okay, so our booth on the floor started a conversation. People got excited. I got to dry hump people. Right here, Lost, 5 hours a month spent invoicing. It's a Lost Cat poster. I created this in 10 minutes, sitting in front of the TV. I printed one poster. Okay, I put it on a subway, on a pole outside of the subway where my assistant came out every morning, because I thought it would be just something funny that she would see, and we'd have like a good laugh about it. Okay, she walked right by it, didn't notice it, but by the time I got to work, we had 4 customers from my little 10-minute, it's not even Photoshop, it's like MS Word and stuff like that. The pull tabs just said, freshbooks.com/cats. And, so I said, hey, we got 4 customers. That's kind of cool. Cost us nothing. We put out 10,000 of them around the city, and the thing went crazy. So I put out 50,000 of them in 10 different cities. I hired half homeless people to just go staple them up all around. Like we were in New York, San Diego, Chicago, Boston, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, Montreal, like just, all the major DMAs. This thing that cost us all in about $400 generated 17,000 like customers. Okay, some of them were freemium, some of them were paid customers, but I think any company would pay $400 all day long for 1,700 people just to add to their email list. And we had people actually giving us money. No idea is too small. Okay, you never know what is going to click with people. So you just keep throwing stuff against the wall. And the best part about word of mouth and the best part of doing, stuff like this is like if it doesn't work, nobody hears about it. It just goes away. So if you're not spending a lot of money on this stuff, it doesn't matter. You just keep doing stuff. Keep cranking ideas out. Next slide, please. The way to do this is to replicate my heartbreak story, but with a little bit of a twist. From now on, when you're brainstorming and you're thinking about me making out with people, you should always run your ideas through this filter. Okay? Every idea has to hit one of three things. Or it has to hit 2 out of 3 things. If it hits 3 out of 3, you know that it's going to be a great idea. If you hit 2 out of 3, it's probably going to be a really, really good idea. Every idea must, and I must change the font on that next time because that didn't match. Every idea must make people laugh. Okay? If an idea makes people laugh, there's a bit of a connection. They stop, they think, they do all sorts of things. Every idea must make people think. Okay, this sounds so simple, but you have to challenge people. Okay, if they're laughing and thinking, that's kind of like the best opportunity you can get. Every idea must create a genuine emotion, even if it's tears. Okay, you want people, like think of those 1980s. I know all of you were around in the 80s, those long distance phone commercials. Like for some of you younger people, you used to actually have to pay to make long distance phone calls. Every one of these phone commercials were all tearjerkers because they wanted you to create that emotional connection. You're like, oh my God, I haven't spoken to that person forever. I've got to spend $67 to have a 10-minute phone call. So that makes perfect sense, right? Some of you still look a little confused, though. So I'm gonna simplify it for you. Next slide. All ideas, if they're going to be successful, must make people laugh, think, and cry. Laugh, think, cry is the easiest thing you can think of. It's easy to remember. Just ask yourself, does it hit 2 of these things? If you can make someone laugh and think, it's a great idea. If you can make someone think and create an emotion with them, it's a great idea. If you can actually take them on a journey where they laugh, think, and cry, that's a really great idea. But if you can only make someone laugh, that doesn't always sustain. That's sort of like a temporary thing. It's kind of like America's Funniest Home Videos. The guy gets kicked in the balls or something. It's funny, but you're not going to turn to anybody and say, oh man, this guy got kicked in the balls. I'm now going to verbally describe this visual thing that made me laugh. Okay? You have to create that second thing that makes someone turn to the person next to them and talk about it. Or the third thing that makes someone turn to the person next to them. Because when we're talking about virality or growth hacking or whatever, everything you guys want is someone to tell 25 people whatever you're doing. And this is how you do it. So there's a lot of ways to do this. Easiest way is through pop culture. The reason pop culture works so well, or at least the reason I like to use pop culture so well, is it doesn't matter where you were born, it doesn't matter how old you are, young you are, everybody knows Batman. Everybody knows Seinfeld. Everybody can connect to that. Okay, so I'll give you a perfect example. Everyone in this room can probably tell me where they were the day they first heard, next slide, Rudy Ray Moore's Zodiac album. Am I right? Tough room. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to tell you a joke. Knock, knock. Who's there? Not a ver. Not a very good response to that last joke. I predicted you guys wouldn't get it. That's how sharp I am. You guys are lucky I showed up tonight. And I know what you guys are asking yourself, and yes, I do have shorts shorter than the ones I'm wearing today. I took it easy on you. Okay, how about Arrested Development? How many people here know Arrested Development? You don't know Rudy Ray Moore, but you know Arrested Development. You guys should all be ashamed of yourselves. Arrested Development, if you know Arrested Development, next slide, please. You know the banana stand. The banana stand was like a character in the show. Okay, it was this inanimate object that like had a personality. It was a major part of driving the story forward. Next slide, please. Here's how I used Arrested Development in a real-world way to create Laugh, Think, Cry, create a bunch of new users, whatever, however you want to, to say it. So next slide. I was given 10 days. Again, you guys are going to see a trend with the whole Twister thing. 10 days to come up with a fancy sort of presence at a fancy conference. Next slide, please. It was a financial services conference where everyone is going to have these crazy expensive booths. It was for FreshBooks. We were a small player in the field. We were not going to spend that kind of money on a booth for a couple reasons. One, it didn't match our brand. Two, we would never actually use the booth again, so it made no sense. And three, we just didn't have the money to do something like that. So instead, next slide, I interrupt this talk to give you a very important takeaway. And this is actually probably the most important thing that you guys will get tonight, except for my phone number at the end, is if you don't feel like competing on other people's terms, you just change the rules. Okay? I've been saying this for years and years and years, and people don't believe me. But here's like a perfect example. So we didn't want to compete with these financial services companies. So instead, we built a banana stand, an exact replica of the Arrested Development banana stand. And here's what happened. Okay, we gave away, instead of giving away like a mug or a pen or whatever, stuff that they were giving away to the other people's, we gave away 2,000 bananas. Okay, picture that phone call. I'm chasing down skids of bananas. But what we did was we changed the sticker on the banana. So instead of it saying Del Monte or Dole or whoever the bananas were, they had our logo. They had a little bit of a tagline, and they had a unique URL that sent people to a landing page that was all decorated bananas and stuff like that. So what happened was, next slide, the idea was brilliant. Do you guys know why the idea was brilliant? But also because it's a perfect example of laugh, think, cry. Okay, there's no better example of this, and I'll explain. So for Laugh, fans of Arrested Development got the joke right away and they appreciated it. They thought it was cool, it was unique. This was before the really awful last season on Netflix, so people were still really interested in Arrested Development. People who didn't get the connection or weren't fans of Arrested Development just thought it was interesting and unusual. It stood out because everybody had these crazy things, and we had this folksy thing that was made like literally in 6 days by a set decorator for a TV show. And they just thought it was like a cool idea and stuff like that. Either way, people needed to see our booth. Next slide. Think. Seeing a 10-foot-high wooden banana will make people think. That's my Bill Clinton thing. Will make people think. It's even going to go as far as getting people to scratch your head. If you are getting people to scratch their head, you have won. Okay, if they're thinking about your brand for 10 seconds, okay, that's longer than you can even ask people to do without being unfair. Okay, you're in people's heads. They're asking themselves questions. When people are asking themselves questions, why is there a banana stand? What is this? What is that? Okay, that is how you get people turning to that person next to them and saying, you will never believe what I saw. Creating an emotion. Arrested Development is a show with rabid fans. The people who got it. They were super excited. It was nostalgia. It's Pokemon Go all over again, but without walking. The idea spoke to them, and it made an instant impact. But the people who didn't get the joke or didn't understand the connection to the show, they just thought it was really interesting. And I know I said that already, but when you create an emotion, this was about small business. This was connection. This was all sorts of things. Everyone's beaten to death the whole lemonade stand thing. But this was kind of for the people who weren't into Arrested Development. This was a new way of doing the lemonade stand. So people still had the connection, like, oh, okay, you guys are giving something out. I get it. It created memories of their youth. And when I say crying, the people on either side of us that spent like $50,000 for their booze, I believe they were the ones doing the crying. So. Was this a success? Can you guys take a guess? Okay, I would agree. 1/3 of all the tweets from the conference hashtag were about our booth. Conference attendees suggested that we win a prize for best booth without an actual prize existing. We were included in most of the coverage and wrap-up posts, but this is the part you number people are going to really enjoy. We gave out 2,000 bananas, about 2,100 bananas with a sticker and a unique URL. 65% of the people checked out that link. Okay? In a normal direct mail, if you get 5%, you're all high-fiving each other and slapping each other on the back. 65% checked out our landing page. Okay, that is crazy. And all it took was giving them something they've never seen before. Wrapping something different in like an unusual experience, something that they were really excited about. So next slide. Here's a more personal example. About a year ago, I had ended a contract. I was working with a company in San Francisco, found myself back in Toronto, and I decided, like, you know, I'm going to do a contest. So I'm going to let myself be the prize, and whoever wins me will win me as an employee. Because, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I have a little bit of an ego. I kind of think I'm really good at what I do. So I thought that actually applying for jobs was beneath me, and boy was I right. But I held a contest. It was called Win Saul as an employee, and I followed the Laugh, Think, Cry model, and I'm going to walk you through it really quickly. So it all started with a piece of art. You can't really tell because it just looks like it was done on a computer, but just the part with me, and you notice even there I wear a lot of T-shirts with my face on it, that's done by construction paper, by an artist I really love. And I have a few pieces of art of his. He makes these like pictures of like 90s NBA stars and 90s rappers out of construction paper. And I just wanted like a piece of art of his with my face on it, and I figured if I just hung it in my house, people would think I was an egomaniac. So at least if I used it for something else, I could then hang it in my house and go, oh yeah, no, that's the Win Saul art. So it all started with a piece of art, but it also started with frustration. I've done really awesome things in my career, okay? But still, I send a resume out, and for whatever reason, like, I never get calls. And it could be that just people think I'm an asshole, but I like to think something else. So this was my way of getting some attention and sort of flipping the idea of hiring. Blind faith in myself, desire for career control, blah, 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 blah. Next slide. Because I used Laugh, Think, Cry. So the laugh was, oh my God, who would do this contest? This guy must be crazy. The think was, I really talked about how the hiring process is broken, and that's something that everyone can buy into. It's a real pain point. And then sort of the creating the emotion, I did a lot of things around, like the final day to win me was my birthday. So there was emotion around my birthday, there was emotion around things. So everything sort of fell into place. So people love stats. You guys are all numbered people. I had 41 applications. 20 were legitimate companies that had a real chance to win me. 7 were interesting to me. 3 out of the 41 were sexual favors. A hand job is a job, just not the one I was looking for. 2 were companies from my wish list. If you guys saw at the beginning, I had like Porsche, Rolex, and all these brands. I put those there because 1, I was hoping they would call me, but 2, I wanted to borrow their credibility so people see me next to them and say, oh, this is the level that this guy should be working at. So it's like I was planting the suggestion in people's heads, and 1 company won me. 21,013 people visited my blog as of the day that the contest ended. 39,000 people saw my initial tweet. 21,000 were organic. The balance were promoted. 945 tweet engagements, clicks, retweets, favorites, and replies. That's like, those are some real decent numbers for like a dopey idea. Okay? It's all because I followed the Laugh, Think, Cry. So what happened was, these are just some of the emotional things. I kept it short. This is actually another thing you guys can learn from this whole thing. I only gave people 10 days to win me. Okay? And I only talked about it every other day. Okay? When you guys are doing campaigns, people can get fatigued really, really quickly. Think about doing shorter things with bursts. Okay? Big, like, promote, like, if you're going to buy, views and all those things, buy them every other day. Don't do it every day. Okay? People get tired really quickly, and nobody was going to stick around for this stupidity for, like a month or something. Gave people 10 days, short, in and out. Get all that excitement at the very beginning and just like end it as soon as possible. there's value in doing 3 separate campaigns, doing like 7 days for each campaign over a 30-day, than running the same thing for 30 days. Change up your creative, change up the idea, make a different offer. I found the reason I also think this worked is I found the balance between overconfidence and humility. Okay, I'm basically saying I'm the fucking best. You guys would be lucky if I joined your company. But I also like balanced it in some weird ways by thanking every person and being genuine and being myself, because I am actually a nice person. I talked about breasts and posted my usual nonsense. Okay, and I include this because I didn't change anything I was doing. Okay, the whole point of this campaign was like people were getting me, good or bad. So I let them actually see like this wasn't a sanitized version of me that most people do when they're in a job hunt. So I kept everything consistent, the same thing for your things. And anyway, so let's keep going. I feel like I'm losing you guys. This is boring. Keep going. Okay, so that's the laugh, think, cry. And that's sort of like the overall halo. Now I'm going to give you guys 100 more examples. So I hope you're free for like 90 more minutes or so. I'll go through these really quickly. And just to let you know, I'm showing you all these for two reasons. One, every idea I show you is stuff I've done myself. I never show anyone else's work, only because I want you guys to be able to ask me anything. You can ask me where the idea came from all the way to success measurements. I will not stand, anyone who stands up and says, Apple did this and things like that, they're just guessing. They have no clue what actually went on in the behind-the-scenes conversation. I can answer any question about any one of these ideas, and feel free, if you guys have questions, you can grab me at the end or interrupt me right now. Yes?
How did your coworkers respond after you landed the job?
Oh, they just hated me, but it's fine. Yeah, listen, I got a one-year contract. I just completed it about 2 weeks ago. I'm not doing another contest. I'm just out in the world consulting. But listen, you put yourself out there, and like it rubs some people the wrong way. But you know, in a job search, you have to do what you need to do to find what you want. For me, my goal in finding a job was finding somewhere I fit in, somewhere that got me. And so, you know, some people love me, some people don't love me. I'm okay with it. Yes?
What are you and why?
I went to a company called Hubba. It's a Toronto-based startup, and the number one reason I went there was because I think Ben, their CEO, is the real deal. Just a really good guy. Interesting challenge they're trying to do and stuff like that. But my decision, I narrowed it down to a big brand, like one of Canada's most recognizable brands that weren't going to let me do anything that interesting, or work for a little startup that I could do really great things. And I think I did really great things for them. If you guys are curious, you can check out my website, saulcolt.com. I wrote like a post-mortem blog post about a week ago, basically itemizing everything I did for them. I did like a case study of my year there. And generally the comments based on that website, on that blog post, were I did in 11 months what it takes most people 4 years to do. So they gave me the opportunity to just sort of run, and that's kind of what I like doing.
We'll make a point of putting it on the event wall so everybody can go check it out afterwards.
Well, I'm going to have to like up my servers or something just to bring everything to a crashing halt. Okay, let's go. I touched on this really quickly, so I may just skip it, but the secret to creating word of mouth, it's so simple. Force people to ask questions. Why is there a mime? Why am I doing this? What's going on? Anytime people are asking questions, like that's what you want. Make them scratch their heads. Try 100 things. Okay, when I talked about the cat poster, okay, the little things, for whatever reason, are the stuff that seems to connect with people like way easier than the big stuff. Super quick, just to go. Let's go back for a second. Super quick, just to give you some ideas to do. If you guys see me there with my friend the mime, I'm a weird guy. I'm more comfortable talking to a room full of people than talking to like one person at a time. I'm forced to network for like my job and my work. So if I have a friend with me, I'm completely comfortable. I can tell Bill Cosby jokes all night. But if I don't have anyone with me, I hire clowns and magicians to network with me because And some of you maybe have heard me say this before, but when when a mime is your wingman, you are no longer the creepiest guy in the room. And this particular mime, I love this man. Like if he lived in Toronto, we'd be married. We developed this whole thing together where he would hide. I would, in every networking event, there's always like a circle of 8 people talking, and if you break in, you're like awful. I would go in and I'd say, hey, everybody, can I ask you guys for help with something? And they're like, sure, and they're really hesitant because they figure you're going to sell you something. I'd say, I need to tell you guys a story. My grandmother, she was like really, really sick a couple weeks ago. She's fine now, but it looked like she was going to die. And on her, when she was at her worst, she looked me in the eyes and she asked me to take care of my brother. And as soon as I said brother, he would jump in and he would start, like, I'm in a bag. I'd say, the only problem is he doesn't speak and I don't speak mime. Can you guys help? And then he would do in like mime the elevator pitch for this company. And we get all these people talking about it. They're like, wait a second, yes, this, and then he would like ask them for all their cars. So he did all the networking work for me. And these people would people were just lining up after because they wanted to see him do the elevator pitch in like mime. Okay, there's nothing you can't do. If there's one thing that like you take from the end of this talk, is there's no such thing as a stupid idea. Well, there are really, really stupid ideas, but you should try them anyways because you never know what's going to happen. If you guys see here, there's a sponsor badge on my conference thing. I buy these at Michael's for like 50 cents each. And when you wear a sponsor badge at a big fancy conference, people are way nicer to you. And you can just go anywhere you want and talk to whoever you need to talk to. It's a caricature. I couldn't find a mime, so I hired a caricature artist, to go networking with me. When people like vanity takes over, so people would stop and we would draw them. Well, the artist would draw them and I would talk to them. They will let you talk to them and pitch them for 5 minutes to wait for their picture. Okay, so what happened was the conference got a little pissy with us because we were getting more attention than people who bought booths. So they actually kicked us out of the conference. So it was in a fancy hotel. We just went to the lobby, and anyone who was using the conference hashtag, we drew them based on their Twitter avatar, and we just kept sending them the pictures over Twitter. We basically could have done this stunt without even showing up. But for weeks, people were still talking about these, and we put a little watermark on them with the logo and stuff like that. Okay. There's tons of ideas if you just want people starting conversations. And the reason you want people starting conversations, yes, you can target people, and yes, you can find your perfect match and all those things. But you're never going to find everyone who could use your product. But you can find a lot of people who will talk about your product, and they will find people who can use your product, and they will drive people to your website. It's a little fuzzy and things, but I swear to you, I built a pretty good career based on this. Next slide.
How do you build up the courage to try, I would say, crazy things like this?
It's not about courage. It's it works. So. How do you build the courage? I don't know. I was overweight my whole childhood, so I've been picked on my whole life. So, I don't worry about anything. Nothing gets to me. I don't know how to answer that question. You either do it or you don't do it. Yeah, just don't worry about it. Yeah, please. Next slide, please. Hey, we're in a postal strike or a pretend postal strike. I don't even know. We had a postal strike 5 years ago. You need to recognize opportunities and jump on them. So 5 years ago, when the postal strike happened, we rented a armored truck, and we said, and this was at FreshBooks, we said, we'll go to all of our customers, pick up your mail, and deliver invoices for you, because our brand promise is we're an invoicing platform. We're not going to take party invitations and other things, but you have an invoice that needs to get to a customer, and they need a physical copy, we will get it for you. That's our brand promise. We extended the brand promise into real life. It got picked up by the Globe and Mail and a bunch of other places. The reason we had an armored truck is it's just funny, and I wanted to rent an armored truck. But these are the things. Media is so hungry for like spectacles. When you do stuff like this, it gets written about. So this was in the printed and online version of the National Newspaper of Canada. Just because we like, and to be honest, we delivered like 6 invoices. Nobody mails anything anymore. But like we took advantage of it. Next slide. So every idea, everything I talk about today is stuff I've actually done. This is the one time I was told I can't do something. If you see the FreshBooks logo here, that's Ivan. That was the mascot when I started at the company. And people always ask me, where do my ideas come from? They all come from watching too much TV and reading too many books and magazines. But the easiest way to come up with ideas is just be super literal. Okay? If someone says something, just do it and don't overthink anything. So I was talking with the CEO of FreshBooks one day, and he says, you know what, I think it's time to kill the mascot. I went home and wrote a 4-page document on how we're going to bludgeon this mascot to death because, you just be literal. So I came back the next day, and I pitched this idea as the only thing that I was told we couldn't do. But if you see Ivan here, we were just going to, swap him out. And he would be gone and no one would know anything about him. I pitched that we should leave him for 6 more months. And every 3 weeks, he gets thinner and thinner and thinner until finally he's in a chair. And then he's got an IV. And then we just announced one day that Ivan died. And here's a charity that you can make donations to. And oh, by the way, we have a new mascot. I love this idea. I think this idea would have gotten so much amazing play. But I wasn't allowed to do it. And once I jumped over a school bus as Evel Knievel, but we don't have time for that story. I just said that all my ideas come from TV and from watching movies and things like that. Very few creative people will admit this. There's no new ideas left. Okay, don't fool yourself. What you do is you look at everything that's been done. You try to sort of massage it a little, make it your own idea. But there's no new ideas. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. I'm close with the CEO of Freshie. It's a company I actually really dig. I think they're good people. We did this thing, I don't know, a year ago or something like that. When McDonald's was having a lot of problems, we took a full-page ad in a newspaper, and we wrote an open letter to the CEO of McDonald's. And basically the letter said, hey, you guys aren't doing so good. Why don't you put a Freshie in every one of your McDonald's restaurants? So we're not telling people to not eat French fries, but eat something really good for them and get French fries and a Coke too. And we'll do a rev share. We only need about 200 square feet in each one of your stores. So does anyone know where that idea came from? That is Don Draper telling tobacco that they'll no longer accept their ads. So we took this full-page ad out. It was covered by USA Today and a bunch of other Tier 1 media. Okay? There's nothing wrong with repurposing a great idea. You just have to make it your own. Okay? And it's easier to make something your own than come up with something from the very beginning. Next slide. So this is a laundry list of other ideas. The point of showing all these ideas, you guys can copy all this stuff if you want, but the real point is to show you what's possible. Okay, don't be limited. I'm hoping that some of these ideas inspire you guys to do whatever you think actually fits in whatever you actually do. So, top corner, did this thing on Twitter where we just said, first prize $1 million, second prize is a box of cereal, name the best song ever written. Okay? Tons and tons of people participated in that thing. Nobody got the answer right, so we didn't have to give away the $1 million, and we don't have a legal team to worry about that stuff. But we sent out about 500 boxes of cereal. Okay, and I actually painstakingly opened each box, put my business card in about maybe 50 of them. We put an iTunes gift card, and we glued them back up. So I don't know if anybody got all the gift cards or out there or whatever, but we mailed out all these boxes. People were tweeting about it. People every time it arrived. It was exciting. We had unboxing videos for a ridiculous box of little cereal and stuff like that. when I say steal ideas, if you guys have ever been in New York City, you know about Dan Smith. He'll teach you guitar. Okay? Dan Smith, this guy is in every bodega everywhere in New York, and the guy apparently teaches guitar. I used really shitty Photoshop skills, and I did a campaign in New York City where I said Saul Colt will teach you marketing, and I basically just ripped off his whole poster because I wanted people to, like me. There's only 25 blocks that would even get that joke, but like I got great response over it because this guy's an institution. Okay, if you're gonna rip something off, make sure people get the joke. Otherwise, it just looks weird. And like I was on a digital board in Times Square. So when I say like opportunities are everywhere, I showed you the postal letter carrier strike thing. There are literally opportunities everywhere to get attention, to get your word out, get people talking. I was in New York City, I don't know how long ago, sitting in Times Square. I know Times Square isn't supposed to be cool. I happen to like Times Square. And I saw unhappy tourists after unhappy tourists go up on this digital wall at American Eagle. So I walked in the store and I'm like, what's the deal? Like, this has got to be bad for you guys. You have like unhappy people on your digital wall. And they're like, oh, we take a picture of anyone who buys anything. And we put him up there. I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. I waited like 4 or 5 weeks until I had some branded clothing for the company I was working for at the time. I went back, I bought a keychain. So for $3, I was up on the digital wall in Times Square. Yeah, it was a rainy day, maybe 100 people saw me, but I took a picture of it. Okay, that is, to this day, that's the picture that's been viewed most of me on the internet. It's been viewed almost 100,000 times. I don't know why, but it's like it's captured people's imaginations. You never know what's going to grab people. So you have to just keep doing 100 things and keep doing them over and over and over and stuff like that. And I've told this story 100 times, and people like, oh man, I've had at least 6 people tell me they've copied that idea because they didn't know that all you had to do was go in and spend like $5 and stuff like that. So who here, you guys are all, you know, digital smarty pants. Who wouldn't pay $500 for 100,000 impressions? It's like it's a no-brainer. Next slide. I love this. So I did some consulting for a local company named Nuvango. They do a lot of interesting things now. They're primarily an art and clothing company, but at the time they were an art marketplace. Their whole promise was, you know, you're a great artist. We'll put it on cell phone cases and pillows and stuff like that. If you see the woman's hands holding a plain back cover, their problem was they wanted more artists on the system and they wanted some awareness for themselves, so maybe a social campaign or anything. So what we did was, there's a magazine called High Fructose, which is an amazing art magazine. They do, you know, like street art and fine art and stuff like that. We bought the back cover for 3 issues of High Fructose. And we said, so this was plain, and said if you ever want to be on the cover of High Fructose, all you have to do is draw something on the cover and send us a picture. But it couldn't be digital. You had to actually put paint or markers or pen or whatever. Okay, these are some of the things we got back from people. Okay, we had over 1,000 people spend maybe 12 hours slaving over this cover to create something amazing. So think about that. Someone investing 12 hours in your brand, maybe a brand they've never heard of, creating something really beautiful that they care about and are super passionate about, and then they share with their whole audience, and they're hoping you'll notice it. So they're promoting for you. So we grabbed up all the great people and we put them on like things and did sort of stuff. But like, I can't even like go into like how seeing this stuff makes me feel, because somebody like you could never get someone to invest that much time, energy, and passion into your brand. So we followed through on our promise, and we put people on the back cover of High Fructose. But like that's really cool. This is like one of the things I'm most proud of that I did. I love art. I love working with artists and stuff like this. The fact that this took off the way it did, this is something I'm super proud of. Yes.
Have you done market for enterprise B2B?
Yeah, FreshBooks is sort of B to prosumer. Worked for Rogers. I've worked for Xero, which is another enterprise accounting software company. People ask me all the time, difference between B2B and B2C. People always tell me I'm wrong. There is no difference. Okay? It's still people. You're marketing to people. You're playing on emotions. Okay? It used to be that B2C was about, B2C used to be about the emotion that something brought you, and B2B used to be about the functionality and the benefits and the features. But it's really like there is no difference. You have to talk about the emotions that the features will bring you. Because when you're doing a B2B play, you're still dealing with one decision maker, and that decision maker is worried about how this is going to affect their career or their job or their department or all those sorts of things. So you have to broaden your pitch and explain why they should, be emotional about it. But there really isn't a difference, and that's, I think, a huge mistake a lot of people make. Like almost everything I've done is B2B. It's like it just depends on kind of. I have a loose, different definition of B2B, but even this, I'm dealing with professional artists. They are companies. They are professionals. There's nothing emotional, or there's nothing feature-based in this pitch. This is all emotion. Okay? So, I don't know. I get a lot of flack for that, but I truly believe that. And I have 20 years doing this. And so, books will tell you differently. Nothing I say today, you have to take as fact. You should run everything anyone says through your own filter. But I truly believe that great marketers don't differentiate between the two. Because, you can speak to people as people and get them when they're outside of work to get them to buy your product when they are at work. Like, there's just different approaches. So, yes?
The cereal example.
That one we weren't looking for any crazy outcome. Most of the people, that was just a branding exercise. But we said first prize is this, second prize is that. We sent out 500 boxes of cereal. Nobody was expecting anything. So I consider that like a really wonderfully executed surprise and delight.
What you use it I share it as an example of the investment.
Really? That's awesome. Thank you. Cool. Okay, let's see what's next. Still with Nuvango. There's so many different ways that you can just I hate to use the word trick people, but disguise your true motives. They sponsored North by Northeast, which is like a Toronto music and technology festival. And what we did is we took a bunch of framed pictures, probably about 50 or so, and we hung them in the bathrooms of all the venues for North by Northeast. And we put this little sticker that says, "Good artist copy, great artist steal." It's a Pablo Picasso quote, and basically paraphrasing, it says, "Hey, if you like this picture, just take it. If you do take it, tweet us and let us know you took it so we can go replace it and put one up." So it sounds really cool what we're doing, and people are stealing and all this. All we're doing is sampling. We would have actually mailed pictures to all these influencers, but instead we got them to actually walk it around and take it on the subway and start conversations all night. And they tweeted about it and said, "Hey, you got to replace it in the bathroom over here, and you got to replace it in the bathroom over there." And then other people started saying, "Whoa, wait, I can just go to the bathroom and steal a picture?" And it created what you guys love to talk about, the viral loop. But again, it's just sampling. Just a different way of doing, one of the core tenets of marketing. Just create an experience around what you're doing. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite stories. So this is a company named Zero. I was working with them in San Francisco. I talked about mimes earlier. Magicians are also a great answer to any question. If you see this gentleman is levitating and minding his own business and reading a newspaper, you look at this and there's someone taking a picture. You look at it, you're like, oh, it's cute. Good for them. Except, next slide, please, the reveal. We did it at QuickBooks Connect, the largest user conference in the accounting industry and our main competitor. And here's the story behind this. Trying to think where to start. Long story short, we put our magician at the front door of QuickBooks Connect. We had a lineup of 200 people that wanted to get a picture with our magician because we created this really interesting photo opportunity. Inside the conference, they had these giant photo social media walls. So inside this conference that they spent $10 million throwing, our logo was more prevalent than their logo. Magic Johnson was the keynote speaker of the morning. The room was only 3/4 filled, and he commented on the room being empty from the stage saying, what's the deal? Who's zero? Because Magic didn't do his research on their main competitor. So we kind of like won their conference. But you look at this and you say, man, you guys are dicks. But we actually did this for good, not evil. Because a lot of the people who are exhibiting inside of this conference also, they have add-ons or like plugins to QuickBooks. They also have plugins to Xero. So we did not sell, we did not give an offer, we did not do anything. Anyone who stopped with a magician got a postcard that said, visit these 29 people inside. Go show them your love. Okay, we were actually promoting our customers who were inside our main competitor's conference. So you can say it's kind of like uncool and disruptive and whatever, but the end result was we actually drove people to the people who support us, and they were sending us emails like all day long saying, thank you so much. Everyone's talking about the magician. You sent these people to our booth that they probably wouldn't have gone to anyways. The only one email that we got was negative was a vice president of marketing for Intuit sent an email to my CEO calling me an asshole. But this was disruptive, but I say it's disruptive in like a kind and gentle way because there actually was a good thing. We weren't grandstanding. We weren't saying, buy our product, it's 50% off today only and stuff like that. We drove traffic to the people who support us and stuff like that. Next slide. One of the greatest things you can do, that's like me like 100 pounds heavier, one of the greatest things you can do is actually get people to do stuff. If you want people to talk about things, make them do something. So I told you I launched ZipCar in Canada. What we did the first week we were in business was I went to a junkyard, got an old car. We painted it green with spray paint. We didn't even like bother with rollers or anything. And we just stopped at the parking lot at Queen and Peter across from like the old Silver Snail. And at lunchtime, it's a high traffic area. We let people for $5, a $5 donation to charity, basically vent their frustration against the high cost of gas or whatever they felt like, venting their frustration. We killed this car. We broke 3 sledgehammers beating this car to death, but like the news showed up, people were talking about it, it was all sorts of things. When you give people stuff to do, everything I'm talking about is the real world. And if you guys are all thinking digital, 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 everything I do, I want to drive people to digital. I want to drive people to start their own conversations, and I want to pour gas on it. I don't want to be the guy saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. I want to be the guy spreading the message that someone else started. Because it's way more interesting for me to be spreading someone else's message than just always be the guy saying, look what I'm doing, look at me, please help me, and be the guy who's begging for something to take off. If you give people stuff to start the conversation, it's also way easier to get those conversations to go crazy. Real quick, I don't even know, I think I ran out of time like 45 minutes ago. Involve people in what you're doing. Okay, so the Internet All-Star Baseball cards. I don't know if you guys know who Chris Brogan is. He's a big deal, nice guy, smart dude. A couple years ago at South by Southwest, we created these Internet All-Star Baseball cards. We made a set of 20 cards. And on the cards, there were 4 people on the cards, were super big deal, and all the rest were just customers who you should know. Okay, the only branding these had for FreshBooks was the logo in the corner. When you flipped it over, it had all their contact information, what their specialty was, why you should work with them, what their sort of career highlights were. And we made a set. We had a checklist. They looked like real baseball cards. We put them in the gift bag for the conference, and we told everybody, if you want to get the whole set, find one of the 6 people from FreshBooks. We'll have hundreds with us at all time. But we also printed 2,000 extra of each person that was on the card, and we picked the people to be featured by who was going to be at the conference, because we wanted them to have business cards, use our cards as business cards. When they kept giving them to people, they were telling our story for them. There's this thing in marketing called know, like, and trust. Okay, I could stand here and say, shill for any company and say, you guys should know this, you should love it, like whatever. Anything I say is great. You're going to be like, but he works there. Of course he's going to say that. But if someone you know, someone you like, and someone you trust gives you a recommendation, you're going to value it like 10,000 times more. So one of the tricks of getting people to talk is actually give them things to talk about. Put them in situations where they can share your story, because your story through them is going to be far more interesting than me telling my story. So we gave them all these cards, and every time they would give the card out to somebody in a networking situation, they'd be like, cool card, where'd you get those? Oh, you'll never imagine, this company, blah, blah, blah. It's really cool, they do this. I can't believe they featured me, blah, 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 blah. So, between the I'm so bad with numbers. Between like the 16 people that were using them as business cards, they gave out maybe 1,500 of these cards, each one of them times 16. I couldn't have met that many people and told a story, and they're going to tell a story way more interesting. Next slide. I won't bore you with that story. Won't bore you with that story. Next slide. Won't bore you with that story. There was a story where a woman slept in my room at South by Southwest and a homeless person. But I, like, another time, another place. Last example, and it's a doozy. So, because I feel like you guys want to go take everything you've learned here and go put it into practical application. Company called Urban Dig. This is one of my favorite stories. Company called Urban Dig asked me to help launch them. They had zero budget. So a lot of the stuff that you saw, not very big budgets. I love working with smaller budgets because I think that you're forced to be more creative. But this was literally zero budget. So this is how you can do things with zero budget. Next slide, please. Everybody knows that like once a decade, Jesus or the Virgin Mary shows up in food. So what we did was we, like the weirdest thing, we found the logo for Urban Dig showed up in a grilled cheese sandwich. Like, who'd have thunk it? We put it up on eBay. We were selling it for $12,500. We wrote grilled cheese sandwich with spiritual image. I wrote some really tear-jerking copy about stigmata and all sorts of things from the Bible and stuff like that. And I asked a bunch of friends to sort of like share it. Little did I know, apparently there's a lot of people searching for Jesus food on eBay. Because what happened was this was viewed by like 12,000 people in the first day. Because it was viewed by so many people, eBay, like, it tripped their algorithm. Nobody bought it, but it tripped their algorithm. They put it on the front page. So it was on the front page of eBay. After the 7 days that it ran, it was seen by approximately like 40,000 people. Out of those 40,000 people, 1,100 people downloaded the app. Okay, that didn't cost anything. We didn't pay for the $2 bolding. It didn't like any of that stuff. People were just curious because inside it said, hey, it's so weird, this company that you've never heard of, and blah, 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 blah. It's a good thing that nobody did buy it because it was just Photoshop and people would have been upset. But hour and a half of Photoshop and another 45 minutes of writing copy and stuff like that, 1,100 downloads. Yes?
What happened when you sold yourself on eBay?
I don't even remember. I do so many things. I don't remember. I don't think anyone bought me. And now you've brought back a wave of really awful feelings of rejection. Next slide. You guys know what misconnections are? Okay, so the whole premise of Urban Dig, and I love this idea. It's a shame that the company isn't around anymore. And you guys will notice as soon as people stop working with me, bad things happen to them. But the premise of Urban Dig was that it's like off the beaten path, like tours and things. So you've got like 4 or 5 hours in a city. You want to like go on a vinyl record shop tour or a vintage clothing store tours. It's the stuff that wouldn't show up in a photo's guide. It's a really amazingly cool presence. So I wrote like 200 misconnections. Every misconnection had the same story arc. It was boy meets girl meets boy meets boy, girl meets boy, meet, fall in love, just about to ask for your phone number, just about to tell you I love you. And, this one was like, blah, blah, blah. Can't even see it. Anyways, they were all like, and then the truck with urbadig.com drove by and honked, and you didn't hear me tell you I love you, or, the guy in the urbadig.com shirt and stuff like that. So this like drove 3,000 people to our website, another 900 people downloaded. So these numbers may not seem really crazy to you guys, but we still haven't spent a penny. Okay? Next slide. This is the thing that really got us the most attention. We launched the company at this thing called LP Grow, launch thing. So the launch conference in Vancouver, they used to have like a startup thing where they'd put like 25 startups in a gymnasium, give you a table and a tablecloth, and just you had to fend for yourself to get attention. So a month before we were going to launch at this conference, again, half homeless people dressed in a bunny outfit, wearing an urbadig.com suit. I registered PETA for Rabbits on Twitter, and I started a war between PETA, fake PETA, and Urbandig, the company. And it was basically just, the whole premise was they had a rabbit for a logo, and PETA didn't like that. So next slide. This is the only thing that actually cost money, and I did that out of my own pocket, like a couple $100. I got people off Craigslist. There should be, I could have sworn there's like 6 more slides. One of my favorite tweets I've ever sent from PETA to people was, it said, next time your grandfather dies, why don't you cut off his leg and make a keychain out of it and leave the rabbits alone? It's crazy funny. So the other thing we did before this was, though, any person who self-identified through using the hashtag that they were going to the conference, these were investors, tech media, all sorts of people, I would send them a tweet from PETA and say, will you support us? Will you stand against us? Please, don't get involved with this company. They're awful people. I basically made everybody uncomfortable going into this conference. When they actually showed up to the conference, we had 4 or 5 people with like signs. They were picketing the front door. There was only one way in and one way out. And every single person was stopped for like 10 seconds. And they were like, screw this company, leave them alone, who speaks for the rabbits, and, stuff like that. The local media showed up and stuff like that. Next slide. We even had, so the slides are all out of order. So I was hitting up people, it's like, hey, getting stoked tonight, will you support us? Ask yourself, what would Pam Anderson do? This was probably the most fun thing I'd done in a long time. Next slide. Next time, a close family member. See, I wasn't lying. You guys, you doubted me for a second. I'm bad at putting slides together. But getting back to the whole thing, every person going to this conference was stopped, physically stopped from getting in. So when they finally got in, where do you think the first place they went? They came right to us. They said, do you guys know what's going on out there? I have no idea what we did. These people are, picking on us and stuff like that. But while you're here, why don't you write a story about it? Why don't you download the app? Why don't you invest? We had every single person visit our booth and spend real time with us. It was better than me lying on top of them with a twister board. Next slide. Skip this. Go. Hey, I threw a cool party. Next slide. All these ideas were born using Laugh, Think, Cry. Okay, this thing actually works. If I was smarter and had time, I'd write a book about this. It sounds so simple, and it actually is. Okay, you have to start thinking a little bit in the real world and drive people to digital, and then you can do all your mumbo jumbo. Next slide. Seth Godin agrees with me. He says instead of outthinking the competition, it's worth trying to outlove them. Spend time with people in real life. Next slide. So in closing, if you remember nothing else from this talk, remember these few things. Laugh, think, cry. I'm going to keep saying it. Here's the thing, and I sort of touched on this earlier. You don't have to believe anything I said. Best reason in the world to do things the way most people, the best reason in the world not to do things the way most people do them is most people are not successful. Okay, I don't believe in best practices. I don't do things the way you're supposed to do them, because like most people are full of shit. I might be full of shit. You guys have no idea. So like run everything through your own filter. I talk about this all the time. This is super important. When you're doing stuff in the real world, know where the line of good taste is with your customers and cross the line. Don't cross it by a lot. Cross it by like 1 or 2 baby steps. Because if you're not crossing the line, you're not doing anything memorable. Okay? The worst thing in the world is to put all this effort into stuff and people just thinking, bland, nothing worth sharing. You have to do stuff that sort of makes people like be shocked. Trying too many things from this talk wouldn't be a good idea, only because I mostly spoke about speaking with people I care about, and if you guys sleep with people I care about, I will cut you. But besides that, I sort of touched on this already. Like, you can do any of this stuff if you want. You know, I already told you there's no such thing as like new ideas. Steal anything I've done. Give me credit, don't give me credit. I don't care. The only thing I hope that comes from this is you guys will be inspired to take some chances, take some risks. Because like this is the stuff that like, you know, it's not for every situation, but for like a majority of situations. This stuff like is what people really get like into and respond to. And we'll close with another email. Saul, you don't know me, but I wanted to share a story with you. About an hour ago, I overheard 3 women talking about you at the Denver airport. They're recapping some stories you told in a class you taught a few days ago. And while I wasn't in your class, I've seen you speak before, and I know you preach about creating experiences. So I drew flowers on a notepad, went over, and delivered the flowers to the women from you. They were really impressed. Keep being you, man. I like what you stand for. People remember this stuff. People do this stuff. They share these stories. They talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. I'm going to give you guys a trivia question that it doesn't matter if you're paying attention because I didn't actually share this number. But if you had to guess, what number would you assume amount like 1 to 100 word of mouth happens online and happens in the real world? Any number, guess. How much word of mouth do you think happens in the real world? 80% of word of mouth happens in the real world. People are talking at the line at the grocery store. They're talking at their kids' soccer games. They're talking at movies. They're talking at things. This is not a number I made up. Almost every number is usually like just made up. But this is true. It's from a fancy company in the States. But like, you guys are like, everyone's so focused is, you know, digital online when the real world is where conversations are taking place. Think about it. Nobody even talks about TV shows anymore because you're afraid of spoilers. Okay? This is like the real world is where conversations are taking place, and that's where real growth is happening. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions? Thank God. We can all go home.
I remember watching a presentation that you gave maybe about a year ago or so. And
Was it the same presentation?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
There was a really interesting point that you made that made me think. You said that you make a point not to read any business books, just so you don't have some ideas as anybody else. Can you talk about that a little bit? I feel like a lot of I do it myself, and I think a lot of us do it. We try to, by way of becoming experts, we become uncreative. We follow, as you said, what everybody else is doing, maybe a little step behind. And maybe there's a fear of not being an expert by not reading what everybody else is reading as well. So how do you get this creativity flowing? What do you read basically? What is it that feeds the fire?
So it's just like I'm like a generally curious person. So I read lots of different things. I watch tons of television. I watch tons of movies. I don't not read everything that other people are reading or watch everything other people are reading on purpose. It's just like my interests seem to lie a little to the left of what, you know, mainstream or whatever. So like, you know, the last book I read was the biography of Tiny Tim. If you guys like know Tiny Tim, is such a wonderful read. That's just like the stuff I'm interested in. So like everybody's influenced by everything. But if you're all doing the same thing or reading the same thing, you're going to have the same derivative ideas. and stuff like that. So like I'm really, really smart, but like there's tons of people who can, dream up one idea and stuff like that. But like I want my ideas to always be different, so I just make sure what's coming in is different than what's going into everyone else. But that doesn't mean, like I don't read some stuff. Like a couple books ago, I read the Shoe Dog, the memoir of Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike. Maybe the single greatest book I've ever read in my life, because he wrote a business book that was closer to like an adventure. It like took place in 20 different countries, and it was all, it was very like, it was just like written like nothing I've ever read before. And I've told everybody I can get their ear to read this thing. It was so inspiring. Just like, I have a Seth Godin slide. The reason I don't read Seth Godin stuff because I think he's written the same book 8 times and stuff like that. So I'd rather read like the book I'm reading right now is it's called Daddy Dearest, and it's Chris Elliott, the comedian, early days of Letterman and stuff like that. He wrote a book. It's a satire book about growing up with a famous father. His father is Bob Elliott from like a really famous comedy duo from the 50s and 60s. But you read this book, and he makes it seem like his father is Elvis, which isn't true. And then at the end of the book, his father gets a rebuttal. It's like maybe one of the greatest things I've read like ever. And I've gotten 20 ideas from reading this book. So, whether they're good ideas or not good ideas, it's just like I'm going to have an idea that someone else hasn't gotten because I surround myself with different content. Like there's nobody who isn't influenced by stuff. So I try to make sure I'm original by, it's all stuff I care about, it's all stuff I like, but it's just a little different. Yes?
Do you keep like a closet for these ideas then, so that when you get there, yeah.
Yeah, I've got, in my phone, I just like any little idea, because sometimes like an idea can just be like a throwaway joke in a movie that you could build into something bigger. So I'll just jot things down, because like, so here's a dirty little secret about what I do, okay? You cannot do stunts if you haven't done the foundation work to actually build trust with your customers. So I turn away so much work because people are like, I just want like a stunt. And I say, well, this isn't going to do anything for your brand. I'll take your money, but please understand you're not going to get the results you want. So like most of the time though, people are like, okay, we need to do something in like 4 days. So there's only 2 ways to come up with something really amazing so quickly. You either stop taking your antidepressants and antipsychotics, let the voices take over and come up with an idea, or you go to your phone where you've got all these crazy ideas, and sometimes 4 bad ideas turn into 1 really good idea. But like, I'm generating ideas all the time. They just don't fit into whatever I need at that moment. So by putting them down, maybe like, a year from now they're going to fit something perfectly, and then everyone's like, man, that guy's a fucking genius. He came up with it in 30 seconds when really I had the idea 18 months ago. Yes?
Do you like constraints or do you like to have more time?
I like constraints. Like I find, and this is just me and it's a personality thing, my first idea is always my favorite. And once I've come up with something I think is a winner, I just don't think it's necessary to come up with 5 more ideas. I know you're supposed to, and like you're supposed to think, but like when you kind of know, you know, sort of thing. So I don't know. Like here's a perfect example about an idea that like I came up with. I've been walking around this idea for a decade. I love this idea. I'm like, it's almost the first thing I pitch to everybody because I just want to see this happen, even if I don't do it. I love infomercials. I actually think for the right product, infomercials is a completely viable, great way to get the word out. I have in my head the perfect infomercial. Okay, you know the lady who does the same lady, she's like in her 50s, little round woman, who's like does all the food commercials and she's chopping up stuff and making grilled cheese and stuff like that. It doesn't matter what product you do this for. I want to recreate a food commercial for a fictional food product, have that lady making grilled cheeses or whatever in this fictional thing. And she says, I'd love someone to try my food. Bring someone up from the crowd, and whatever product you're actually selling, she goes, well, what do you do for a living? And the guy just talks for 45 minutes about his company. So he filibusters but the distraction is all the food stuff. And the whole time he's pitching his product and talking, she's still chopping and putting sandwiches in his mouth and like just making things. And like for some reason, I love this idea, and I think it works universally for anything. I just haven't found anyone who will bite on it. But like, so I've literally like we're talking probably 9 years I've been walking around with this. I could see every aspect of it. I've got every line written. It's like it's such a beautiful, pure idea, but just no fit at this time. Dan. I was hired at FreshBooks as I don't even remember. Well, I guess ZipCar was the first thing that paid me to do like stunts and stuff. So the whole deal with ZipCar was I was the first international employee of this giant company, and they didn't take Canada very seriously. It was just like a PR stunt to say, hey, we're international now. So they didn't pay any attention to what we were doing up here, so I had free reign to do whatever I wanted. So like a lot of the stuff you guys know of like now, of like ZipCar on corners with the flags and all that stuff, that didn't exist before I was doing crazy stuff up here, like the green signs, all sorts of stuff. It all originated in Toronto and things like that. So it was really like, just nobody was watching. So it just kept pushing limits, and, in time, stuff actually became standard operating procedure for the company. But if I had pitched or asked permission, it would have been shot down instantly. But, at FreshBooks, where I did the most stuff in my career, I didn't remember what I was hired for. It was like some digital marketing something or other. And on like day 5, once I felt comfortable, I was like, this is what we're going to do. Here's the first plan. You guys, just get on my back and let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, just throw me out. And like stuff just kept working. Like, and I don't give, this is actually the worst advice like I could give anybody. But like, this is just my personality. At least once a year, I have an idea that's good enough it's good enough to be fired over. So I'll just do the idea, and if I get fired, I get fired. Like hopefully I'll get a new job and stuff like that. But like I believe like certain things have to be out in the world and stuff like that. I should have a more mature attitude towards these things. I'd be more successful. Maybe I could go on a vacation every now and then. But like I'm just like whatever. I've just made this my life. So like I do shit and worry about it later, kind of thing. Yes.
So I have the suspicion that if you and I had the same idea and
mine would be a million times sexier.
The exact same thing.
Yeah.
If we both did it, you would be the chances of you being successful would be so much higher because of execution.
I don't know about
you
that.
have experience doing this. Do you have like a process, something that at least in your head that you go through to make sure that maximize the chances of being well executed?
With any stunt, like things always break, so I make sure I'm always there. I plan for the worst. I was on a podcast earlier this week, and I told this story. We did a thing at the state capitol building in California where we did like a free lunch on their lawn without permission, and the state police of California like put me in a holding cell, and like they questioned me, and like so the two things that were going through my mind were I'm going to be deported and never allowed back in the United States, and the other thing was I want to make sure the stunt like finishes. So they thought we were going to be there all day. We only wanted to be there for an hour, just to do like the lunch crowd and stuff like that. So I basically like filibustered and talked nonsense for 40 minutes to state police while like we finished the stunt outside, and then I looked at my watch. I'm like, okay, you know what? You guys are right. We're just going to go. And we went and cleaned up, and they let us go. So it's like part of it is like, it's just like I just want to see stuff happen and things like that. But I always plan for the worst, and I always know. Like here's another story. So we did a stunt a month or two ago, maybe 3 months ago. Dan was a part of it, and like we had people half naked walking through the Eden Center, and in my head I had planned, this is what's going to happen if we get 30 seconds before security shuts us down, this is what happens at 60 seconds, and this is what happens at 90 seconds. security couldn't have cared less, and they just let us do our thing. So I'm standing there thinking like all my best laid plans, and we had to actually like figure out what we were doing. So we just kept doing it until somebody actually noticed what we were doing, because we were filming the whole thing, and the security presence was actually a really important part of the video, and we never got it because they couldn't have cared less, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. So we had to kind of regroup outside and figure out how we were going to save the thing. So like you can plan and plan and plan and plan and plan, but I also have plan B, plan C, plan D, plan thing, and sometimes you just have to like fix it in real time and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah.
In your one Twitter campaign, I think you had tens of thousands of followers or impressions, but you also talked about you had some promoted ones there.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like this type of thing typically would just take off, especially with your following whatever. So what was the thinking behind needing to sort of like get the snowball going down the hill, or why were you promoted?
The only reason I promote things is to hit certain geographies and to hit actual like friends of certain people. So I will never promote a blanket thing, but I invest like $100 to promote every writer of like the New York Times, every writer of the Wall Street Journal, every writer of key media and stuff like that. I use promotion just to target like groups of like-minded people and stuff like that. So when I promote something, I will not promote just like a hit everyone in Toronto. I promote followers of the New York Times and hope that like employees see that as well. But I'll target followers of the New York Times in New York City, and as close to the postal code of their office as possible, and stuff like, or zip code or whatever. So it's a lazy sort of like way of getting on the radar of some key people, but I never do it without like a very, very clear goal. And like when I promote, like we're talking $50, $100. I'm not investing tons of money in like promotion stuff like that. Yeah.
I'll just keep asking questions. So you're doing consulting now.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a potential new client, what do you look for in them to help you understand whether you can really make an impact? Is it the stage of the company, the type of people that they are?
I almost don't care about the company. I care about who they're trying to target, and I ask to speak to customers more than anything. So I interview customers. So when I said you have to know where the line of good taste is, you really have to know that line, and you can only get that by, I'm not trying to impress the boss of the company. I'm trying to impress their users and their customers. So I interview customers before I make a decision on who I'm going to work for. And if a company won't let me talk to their customers, that's probably not like a company that's going to get what I do and stuff like that. I turn down a fair bit of work, not because I'm afraid of anything. I'll literally do anything. I've worked for people who make sex toys. I don't care about that stuff. It's more like I'm just like I feel like my ideas are so sacred that I want them to be appreciated by the end user, not the company. And also I need to know what it can get away with and stuff like that. Basically, I'm saying I'm a prima donna.
But so when you look at those customers, is it a personality thing that determines that decision?
It's a fun thing because I've done super safe things for super conservative companies, but it's like, would these people even care if a company did something really interesting and stepped out of their comfort zone and stuff like that.
So enterprise IT might not be the right market.
I've done stuff for IT, and so that's just, you just have to, the customer, know what you can get away with and stuff like that. The idea isn't always, let's kidnap people. Sometimes the idea is just do everything they're doing already and make it just a twinge more interesting. Yeah.
So when you do marketing stunts and do the whole creative process, do you like to work with a team, or you lone wolf, or you like to kind of orchestrate everything
It,
even working with other people gets
so I have like a whole team of like friends that I bring in transactionally, based on the project and stuff like that. Like the company is just me, and I'll usually like do most of the creative work myself. But like I have 5 friends that are, you know, comedy writers for some of the biggest shows in the world, and I'll always bounce ideas off of them. And so I'll come up with the original idea, and I'll bring in people to make it better or see it to its fullest potential. And but I have like regular video people I work with all the time. I have regular designers I work with all the time. Just like I just don't put them on the payroll unless we're actually working on projects. But like even though these people are some of my closest friends, I pay everybody to, you know, for work on projects. I never take advantage and like ask anyone to work for free unless I'm working for free. And it's the same thing. I do a lot of free work for friends and people like that, but like I never, like I'll work for free as long as everyone's working for free. I'm never the only person not working for free. Yeah.
Cool. I think we can.
Cool. Well, can everyone agree this was the best growth hacking meeting ever?